Speed, speed, and more speed. The West Virginia Mountaineers have added 2 players to 2 different position rooms that will bring a ton of speed to the Mountaineer roster in 2026. We're going to talk about that in today's episode. In the second segment of the episode, we're going to talk about money and dollar signs and how the Big 12 Conference is making more money for their programs by making another business deal. We're going to talk about that. This time it's on the basketball side of things. And then finally, in the third segment of today's show, we're talking about former West Virginia University President E. and how he has an idea that I happen to like that could help save college sports. Let's talk about it. So stick around, and we'll do it now. What is up, and welcome into this episode of Couz's Corner, your home for top shelf college sports news and analysis surrounding the West Virginia Mountaineers and sometimes the Big 12. Today's episode, we're starting with a little bit of West Virginia Mountaineer recruiting talk. The Mountaineers have went out and added a couple of JUCO players for the 2026 season. In running back Martavious Boswell, who actually just committed today, and I'm recording this on Monday, November 24th, and also Kedrick Triplett, a wide receiver from Pearl River Community College. Now, a lot of fans are complaining that West Virginia is getting too many JUCO players. Well, let me explain to you why it's not that big of a deal and not a bad thing. Number one, I'm going to give you 2 names that played junior college before coming to West Virginia, and you tell me if they were mistakes or not. Kevin White, wide receiver. Bruce Irvin, defensive end. Were those 2 players mistakes? Was it a bad idea for West Virginia to bring those 2 players in from the JUCO ranks? And I'm sure there have been many others that I have forgotten about, but those are the 2 that came to mind because both of those were friggin' first-round NFL draft picks. Now, are most players going to be as good as Bruce Irvin or Kevin White? No. But this is a recruiting class that already has 31 verbal commits to it, and there's probably going to be more on the way. He said he wants to add 35 high school players and build the team from the high school ranks. So you're going to bring in a lot of people. Some of those players will end up being really good. Some will not be really good. Well, guess what you can do the following year to the players that aren't really good? They can enter the transfer portal and go somewhere else. But if they happen to hit and be really good, they will help your football team. And the good thing about JUCO players, they are more physically ready to play when they get there than high school seniors are most of the time. So it's possible that these 2 guys who I'm going to talk about, Boswell and Triplett, could come in and play right away. As a matter of fact, let's start with Boswell, the running back. One of the reasons he came to West Virginia, according to Rivals, is because he was told by running backs coach Larry Porter that he could potentially be the guy at West Virginia. And I know what you're thinking, but Couz, what about Jaheim White? What about Sincere Bowers? What about Dior Hubbard? Well, if they all 3 stay, which I doubt all of them will, they're going to need competition. They're going to need depth in that room. We saw how injuries can happen. You're going to need a ton of good running backs. And you want them to push each other. Rich Rodriguez never guarantees starting spots to anybody. We heard Kevin Brown talk about that when he was making his commitment on the Pat McAfee show. Nobody is promised a starting spot. Nobody is promised playing time. You have to earn it. It will be no different from Martavious Boswell, and it will be no different than for Jaheim White or the guys coming back next year. They have to earn their spots. But when you look at Boswell, I think he's a great addition. It never hurts to get a guy who runs a 4.3 240 and a 10.36 in the 100-meter dash. Is that ever a bad thing? Especially when they're 5'9", 175 with good field vision and can hit the hole very quickly and make people miss in space once they get to the second and third level. Sounds like the makings of a good running back to me. So I like the addition of Martavious Boswell to that running back room. And there's also a chance they may even add another player, Landon Walker, who's also supposedly making a visit or has made a visit over this past weekend, who's a bigger, more physical back from the Colorado School of Mines. I think he visited over the weekend or is at least planning a visit. So they may bring in even more backs to that room to add to the ones I just mentioned, plus Tyler Jackledge, plus Andre Devine. And let's face it, all of the Clay Ash, don't forget him. But let's be honest, all of those guys are likely not going to stay. Some will likely enter the transfer portal. So they're bringing in bodies for depth and bodies that can compete for playing time. But when you look at Boswell, he rushed for 1,109 yards, 13 touchdowns, and averaged 8.5 yards per carry this past season. for Copiah Lincoln Community College. He had offers from several G5 schools, but also offers from not only West Virginia, but Kansas State and Mississippi State. So another Big 12 school and an SEC school also offered this player. That's one thing you always want to look at. Who's his offer list? What's his offer list look like? Well, he had other Big 12 and other Power 4 schools on his offer list, but he chose West Virginia over those other schools. So that's Martavious Boswell. He goes by Tay. Go check his highlights out. I think you'll agree with me that he's a good pickup. Now let's talk about Kedrick Triplett. Not sure how you pronounce it. He's a 6'2", 205-pound wide receiver, one of the top 3 wide receivers coming out of the JUCO ranks for 2026. West Virginia also, if you remember, got a commitment from Keon Hutchins, another player I'm very high on. I'll leave a link to the video I did about him at the end of this one. But another fast, speedy receiver from Pearl River Community College. He hails from Florence, Alabama, a 3-star recruit, according to 24/7 and ESPN. Finished the season with 25 catches for 399 yards and 5 touchdowns and had 200-yard games. It's 3 years of eligibility remaining. Will be an early enrollee, so he will graduate in December and be to Morgantown in January, just like much of this 2026 class, which is going to be huge for their development, which means that's even greater chance that they'll be ready to go by the time fall camp rolls around, by the time, the first game rolls around. His offer list, a lot. I mean, a ton. Almost every G5 program offered this guy, including Marshall, East Carolina, Arkansas State, UTSA, others. But he also had offers, for those of you who think it doesn't matter unless they're offered Power 5, offers come from Power 4 schools. He also had offers from Arkansas and Utah. So again, an SEC school and a Big 12 school offered this receiver, Kedrick Triplett. So West Virginia has went out and added speed with Hutchins. They've added speed with Triplett, and now they've added speed also in the running back room with Martavious Boswell. So I like these pickups for the Mountaineers, assuming these guys sign. Again, they're JUCO players. They likely won't demand a ton of NIL money, at least not from the jump. They're looking to move up to the next level, prove they can play at the next level. Then maybe they can demand more NIL money, right? That's what the goal is here. Prove yourself, then earn more NIL money. And they should come in with a chip on their shoulder because they want to prove that they can play at the Power 4 level. And I'm sure they have a lot of doubters, like many of you may be. But let me know in the comments what you think about these 2 additions for the Mountaineers. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Do you think it's worth bringing in JUCO players? Or is JUCO recruiting dead in your opinion? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Before we move on to the next segment of the show, which is where I talk about the Big 12 deal in basketball that they just inked and why it would benefit schools like West Virginia, I need to give a shout out to the folks over at DraftKings Sportsbook, who, by the way, have West Virginia in their upcoming football game against Texas Tech as 26.5-point underdogs. That's right. Texas Tech is minus 26.5 against the Mountaineers in Morgantown. That's how big of an underdog West Virginia is, according to DraftKings, the last I checked. Of course, we all know odds and lines are subject to change. But if you want to bet on that game or any other game or any NFL game, for that matter, go check out DraftKings Sportsbook. But real quick, I'm going to pause for a quick shout out from them and a special they are running for Thanksgiving. So check this out.
Do you know about the 3 T's of Thanksgiving? Turkey for eating, table for gathering, and touchdowns for winning. With DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, every touchdown could bring you closer to cashing in before dessert. With DraftKings Sportsbook, all the action's in your hands. First touchdown, anytime TD, live bets. Every play, every snap, every game counts. When the games get good, the bets get better. Here's the best part. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets instantly. When touchdowns happen, we feast. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code COUZ. That's code COUZ. Bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, pass-through of per wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
All right, thank you for letting me get through the housekeeping and pay the bills. And again, go check out our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook if you want to place, before you place your next bet, and take advantage of that offer they have going today. Now, let's go ahead and dive in to the next topic of the show, and that is the Big 12 makes a huge basketball deal. This was a press release from the Big 12 that came out earlier today, and here's what it had to say. Players Era, an Ever Wonder studio company, and the Big 12 Conference announced a first-of-its-kind partnership that will grant the Big 12 an equity stake in the marquee Players Era Men's Championship Tournament. Now, I'm going to pause there, and for those of you who don't know, Players Era is what they call an MTE. It's one of these in-season tournaments like West Virginia just played in the Charleston Classic. We've heard of the Maui Invitational. All these MTEs that happen. This is a new one called Players Era, and it's done in Las Vegas. Well, this is one that actually pays money to the teams that participate and the athletes, is my understanding, who participate in it. So this is a big deal. And as we go through this, you'll see why this is such a big deal for the Big 12. For financial reasons, and B, for exposure. This is going to give the Big 12 and their teams a ton of exposure, because this tournament could end up being a very, very big tournament. It could end up being the biggest MTE out there, because it's getting ready to expand to 32 teams. But it goes on to say, as part of the landmark partnership, the Big 12, which has established itself as a top conference in men's basketball over the years, and again, this is a Big 12 press release, so obviously they're a little biased, right? But I happen to agree with that. At least it may not have been last year, but the previous several years they were, in my opinion. Anyway, it goes on and says, Big 12 will see the top 8 teams in the league standings receive automatic bids to the following year's Players Era Men's Championship, starting with the 2026 event and running through 2030. So the next 5 tournaments, the next 5 Players Era tournaments will have, so for example, the top 8 teams in the Big 12 who finished the 2025-26 season in the top 8, all 8 of those teams will play in next year's Players Era Championship. Okay? 8 Big 12 teams out of 32. So they're going to have a huge chunk of this tournament. Half the conference will be in it. It says, for Players Era, this strategic evolution represents the next phase of expansion as it establishes a new operating framework in college basketball. It says the Big 12 Conference, this is a quote from the CEO of Players Era. It says the Big 12 Conference continues to lead collegiate athletics movement into a new landscape, and we are incredibly proud to enter into this partnership. The conference has been instrumental to our growth from day one. The Big 12 now receives guaranteed access to the biggest college basketball event outside of March, and will benefit perennial powers and teams with national championship aspirations. Over the next 6 years, Players Era will commit to no less than $50 million to Big 12 basketball programs in rights fees, end quote. Again, that's from Seth Berger, the CEO of Players Era. So $50 million to Big 12 basketball programs over the course of the next 6 years. Do the math. Comes out to about $1 million for every team that plays in that tournament. That's a big deal. That's $1 million they can give their student athletes for NIL or whatever. And maybe that's straight. There's no details on how that's distributed, what it goes to. It may be all NIL related. It doesn't matter. Point being, it's a lot of money for these Big 12 programs. So it will benefit the Big 12 for every team that gets in that tournament. A big deal financially, and also, again, exposure for those teams. The CEO of Everwonder, who owns Players Era, had this to say. Credit to the Big 12 leadership for taking such a forward-thinking approach that prioritizes creating new and exciting opportunities for the teams and players in their league, reflecting our shared vision for a future of college sports, said Ian Orifice, CEO of Everwonder. The Big 12 is one of the country's premier men's college basketball conferences, he goes on to say. And we are thrilled to have their top teams locked in for our event every year as we continue to build our November championships that celebrate the best players and teams in the country and creates a must-see event for college basketball fans, end quote. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, well, what does Brett Yormark have to say about this? I'm going to tell you right now. He says, the Big 12 Conference is thrilled to grow its partnership with Players Era. The tournament is a tremendous platform to showcase our conference, student athletes, and coaches as the best in college basketball, and we look forward to continuing to make Players Era a national marquee event, end quote. It says Players Era and the Big 12 have already established a pipeline of marquee teams competing in the Players Era Men's Championship. Talks about Houston played in it last year, en route to a Final Four appearance, and being national runner-up. This year they're in it again, along with Kansas, Iowa State, and Baylor in an expanded 18-team field. So anyway, and again, I think I'm pretty confident that I read another article that said they're expanding to 32 teams for next year and beyond. So, it didn't mention that here necessarily, but that's my understanding of how this works. But if I'm wrong on that, let me know in the comments. But I think, again, if you got an opportunity to play in this tournament, you're a Big 12 team, it's an extra approximately at least $1 million for your team or your student athletes or however you want to slice it up. That's a big deal. In this day and time where you're trying to scrounge for revenue, and that might be, let's look at the entire picture of an athletic department. If you're West Virginia and your basketball team gets that money for playing in that tournament, maybe that's $1 million less. That's another $1 million you can put somewhere else towards football or towards baseball or towards women's basketball or whatever, your Olympic sports, whatever. This is so advantageous to these teams, these programs, these athletic departments. Now, I don't know if the $50 million is only going, I'm assuming it's going to go to only the schools who participate in it. I don't know for sure. It could just be given to the conference and they distribute it out. I don't know. It did not go into detail there. But any way you slice it, this is beneficial to the Big 12 and just another example of the good job Brett Yormark is doing in getting the Big 12 to the forefront when it comes to outside-the-box deals like this. Now, are they ever going to catch the Big 10 and SEC? Likely not. But things like this will definitely help close that gap. These types of outside-the-box deals. So kudos to Brett Yormark. Kudos to the Big 12 for being at the forefront of this and getting this deal done. It would be awesome if they can do the same thing in football with bowls. A lot of the bowl contracts will be up, is my understanding, at the end of this season. Can the Big 12 get themselves outside of the CFP bowls, obviously? How many of these big marquee New Year's Six bowls outside of the CFP can the Big 12 affiliate themselves with going forward? That's going to be huge because those bowls will still bring in a lot of viewership and will be worth a lot of money to these TV networks and these bowl partners. So they did it in basketball now with this Players Era Championship. Can they do the same in football with these bowls? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But let's move on next to our third topic of the show. Before we do, though, I want to give a quick shout out to our other sponsor here at the channel, Appalachia Digital. They are the folks who designed our website over at WVSportsChat.com. It's where you can find written content on the Mountaineers by myself, Jonathan Martin, and others. We cover basketball, football, women's basketball, a lot of baseball coverage. We cover the gamut over there of your major sports at WVSportsChat.com. That site was designed by our friends over at Appalachia Digital. They did a great job on that site. If you want them to design your site, they can do it. Go to AppalachiaDigital.com/Couz. That lets them know I sent you. Or if you already have a site for your small business or your blog or whatever it is you're doing, they can help you level up your site or help you get found easier on Google. Again, go check them out at AppalachiaDigital.com/Couz today. All right. Now, last but not least, let's talk about our good friend, former West Virginia President E. Gordon Gee, who resigned this past summer, been replaced by Michael T. Benson. He's now taking on some kind of role at Ohio State. It's not a full-time role. I think he's maybe he's a consultant or something. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, he's former president at West Virginia twice, former president of Ohio State. He's been at Colorado. He's been at Brown University. He's been a college president for over 40 years, is my understanding. So he's also been very active in trying to find ways to, quote unquote, save college sports. Now, he was part of one of the first Super League ideas. that came out. This new idea is not a super league, believe it or not. It's actually something where you could keep all conferences intact. According to him, the Big Ten and SEC could keep and maybe even grow their market share, but yet it would also generate more money for other schools, other athletic programs, and other student athletes, and could potentially save Olympic sports. Here's how he proposes to do it. He wrote an op-ed in The Hill, which you can go check out. If I remember, I'll leave a link to it in the description box. But here are the main points of his op-ed. It says, athletic departments across the country last year lost tens of millions of dollars. And many schools are going to lose even more. He says it would get up into the billions of dollars this year alone. So much so that schools will be forced to cut sports and scholarships. And as a matter of fact, he said that more than 40 D1 Olympic sport programs have already been cut since last May. That means how many student athletes has that affected that are now no longer getting those scholarship opportunities? It's a lot. And he says it's going to get worse. Who else have we heard talk about this? Cody Campbell, the chairman of the board at Texas Tech, the one who's paid for a lot of these good players that Texas Tech has right now. We've heard him mention it too. He has ideas out there to try to save college sports. He's more along. He wants to do something more closer to a super league, which Gordon Gee has been on board with too. But now he's kind of flipping to this new model. But let's keep going. He thinks this will be a long-term solution instead of a short-term fix, which he thinks a lot of these other ideas out there would be. He also goes on to talk about college football specifically and how it's the second most popular sport in America by viewership, but yet ranks only 5th in TV revenue. And the reason he says that's the case segues into his first solution. There's two different things he thinks needs to be done. The first one is unifying the media rights, something that Cody Campbell has been adamant about. He thinks all, not just Power 4, but all 136 FBS programs should unify their media rights. In order to do that, though, they would have to get help from Congress, who would have to give them a limited antitrust protection. We've heard Cody Campbell talk about the Sports Media Act or Media Rights Act or whatever they call it. He wants college to be included in that because right now it only applies to pro sports. That way, networks could bid on the entirety of college sports instead of just a specific conference. And he says that so basically it's more shelf space, more money, right? More inventory, more inventory, more money. That's the idea here, right? But there's a second piece to this that Gordon Gee, and this is the one I think is interesting because I hadn't really thought about this. Unifying the media rights is something we've talked about ad nauseum, not only here, but on other channels. But he thinks they need to centralize scheduling. Now, this doesn't mean a super league. It doesn't even mean regionality necessarily. What he's meaning is this. Less bye games, basically. So you have less games, for example, less games with P4 teams playing FCS teams, maybe even less games against group of 5 teams. Less lopsided games is the way he worded it. And in addition to that, you would have your marquee games, marquee non-conference games centralized as well as far as the scheduling goes to spread them out more. So basically, in essence, don't play all of your good non-conference games all in the same weekend, right? Spread them out a little bit so you get your marquee games on every single week. That would be attractive to the networks. Now, when it comes to your conference schedule, you can keep that however you want. Keep it the same. But make sure every conference is playing their conference games at the same time. Right now, you have the SEC who always sprinkles in that FCS opponent in week 13 or whatever. There would be no more of that. You would be playing your SEC schedule, boom. Big 12 schedule, boom, all at the same time. But your preseasons, your non-conference schedule, almost said preseason, your non-con schedule would also be more centralized. So you'd have less games against G5 teams, less games against FCS teams, more marquee matchups for all the Power 4 schools, and you could even have more marquee matchups for your group of 5 schools. Have your top G5 brands play each other more often. I don't know how that would work for them, which is actually what I've got written down here, which we'll get to in a minute, as to one of the negatives to this and how it might not work for them, for those smaller schools. But what I find intriguing is the SEC and the Big Ten. Oh, let's get back to the scheduling real quick. We're getting ready to go into rivalry week. Maybe that's why he wrote this at this time. Would it be, and I've even said this, a lot of people are mad that the Pitt West Virginia game doesn't get played on rivalry week. I actually think it would be a bad idea to play it on rivalry weekend because it would just get buried under all these other, it would be good for us fans, maybe, but as far as getting West Virginia, and even if you're Pitt in front of a wider audience, you don't need to do it at the same time as all these other rivalry games. They need to have their own standalone week. I actually didn't mind playing it week 3 because it was one of the only rivalry games being played that weekend, so it had more of a spotlight on it, more national attention. That's good for the teams in that game. You could do that in every week of the season until you get into conference play, right? Now, obviously, you're going to have some overlap because there are too many games and too many teams, but you get the point. You would have great marquee matchups, more of them every single weekend, in non-conference and in conference play. That's the point here. Without changing conferences, getting rid of conferences, any of that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read the last paragraph of Guy's statement or Guy's op-ed because I think it's powerful. Here's what it says. Actually, it's the next to last paragraph. There are no gotchas. This is not a super league. All schools are included. All stakeholders make more money. Conferences, commissioners, and tradition stay. College football will continue to be owned and controlled by the conferences and schools, not government or some outside entity. He goes on to say this. There is so much at stake. The future of the Olympics, which is something I've mentioned briefly here, but it's not talked about enough. He goes on to say the rise of women's sports, the opportunity for young people to earn a scholarship, compete for something greater than self, and become tomorrow's leaders. My hope is that together we will recommit to this fundamental responsibility, uniting to preserve the essential role that college sports play in America. Now, for all the bad, negative things we can say about Gordon Gee and stuff he did at West Virginia, whatever, this right here is on point, in my opinion. And anybody who's not on board with this, in my opinion, does not have the greater good of college athletics in mind. If you're not at least willing to sit down and talk about this and have a conversation about this, then you do not care about the betterment of college sports. You only care about yourself or your own conference. And I think that is selfish, especially in college sports, because it's for, and again, the Olympics. Do you still want America to be competitive in the Olympics? The Olympic programs are fed through the college programs. Are they not? You're swimming and diving, you're weightlifting, you're wrestling. Most of those are fed, track and field, fed through the college programs. If Olympic sports at colleges start getting cut, you will see less and less talented Olympic athletes potentially participating for the United States of America, which will take we will basically get knocked down a notch. We will no longer be one of the premier teams in the world, premier countries in the world, rather, when it comes to sports and the Olympics. Do we really want to lose our status worldwide? We don't. We're too proud for that. We're proud Americans, man. Let's keep that status up. Let's keep and most importantly than that, it gives more student athletes scholarship opportunities. They can't get scholarships if their programs get cut. Do we want more kids going to college or do we not? It's really that simple. And Gordon Gee has a way to at least discuss fixing it. And he says he's talked to experts who say this will make more money for everyone involved. Now, he obviously didn't specify who those experts were, but it's at least worth having the conversation about it. Don't you think? Let me know what you think in the comments about this. I want to hear your thoughts on it. Before I get out of here, I do want to take an opportunity to give a shout out to my paid VIP channel members of this episode. One of the perks of being a paid member. Those random shout outs for this show are Tanner Tracks Premier, Bourbon Crazy, Jake T, Cheers, Beers Mountaineers, and James Green. Thank you all for being paid channel members. If you want to be a paid channel member, it's a very easy way to support me financially, very inexpensive. There's a join button below the video. It's on most devices. If it's not, you can go to my channel homepage. You'll see it right beside my profile photo. There are two levels. There are perks to go with each level, including the random shout-outs. You can check out the perks once you hit the join button. Also want to remind you can help me out by hitting the thumbs up button on this video. If you're watching on YouTube or I'm listening on audio platforms, you can follow me on there. You can leave me a 5-star review. That really helps my show out. You can also hit the hype button below if you're watching on YouTube. It's between the download and the thanks button on mobile devices only. Please hit that as well. Please share it with your family and friends. Please subscribe if you haven't. All of that's free to do. The VIP's not, but everything else is free and very easy to do. Press the subscribe button below or the thumbs up button below the video today. Please do that. It really helps me out, as well as the comments. YouTube really likes interactions with videos. So commenting, liking, all that really helps us creators out. So please do that. I really appreciate you tuning into the show. Hope the rest of your day is top shelf. God bless you, and Q Country Roads.